GT Championship of 1997, the Brazilians took the chance to organise 2 rounds of a winter temporada. First race at Curitiba and the second at Brasília, both organised by Nelson Piquet. Well, this is the Curitiba race. It's a 2.3-mile circuit, and it's Brazil's 4th track after Interlagos, Rio de Janeiro and Brasília. Drivers liked it. There's a lot of corners in a small area, and there's a lot of work for this first of the 2 rounds of the temporada. 18 starters from the BPR series, but a lot of local drivers in familiar cars. On pole, Maurizio Sala in the Joan McLaren from Antonio Herman in the Enya Ferrari. The Enya Ferrari is being run by Euroteam this weekend. So everyone getting some heat into the tires, not that it's that necessary. It is super hot here, 32 degrees here in the Brazilian summer, and 20,000 spectators packing the circuit to see the first race in many, many years here at Curitiba. First international race, I should say. So Piquet and Johnny Cecotto in the Bugatti McLaren. It's one of the factory 96 Le Mans cars. Obviously favourites here, the 2 South American drivers, Piquet from Brazil and Cecotto from Venezuela, having already won the Interlagos 1,000 kilometres in 1994, hoping to repeat that in 1996-97 winter here at Curitiba. Well, the race is on. There's 2 hours of racing ahead. And straight into the lead goes indeed, shutting the door firmly, Johnny Cecotto, taking the lead from Maurizio Sala, Antonio Herman and Thomas Bischer, the 95 BPR champion in the West McLaren, which Dave Price Racing is running as usual. Well, behind them, the pack of Porsches being led by the GT1 Conrad 911, the Curitiba circuit racing manager Flavio Trinidade. He's showing the car with Jürgen Barth, who's Porsche's customer racing manager. At the moment, Sala's pushed himself in front, but Venezuelan Cecotto then takes the lead back, and he's now pushed Sala back into second again. Herman Ambusher, he's just putting his stamp on the circuit. The Venezuelan driver, former motorcyclist, 350 world champion in 1975, and he was 750 world champion in 1978 before he moved over to single-seater racing. He was runner-up in the European Formula 2 champion of 82. Then had that big accident at Brands Hatch driving for Tolman in 84. Turned to touring cars and GT cars, and here he is, still racing hard and leading this 18-car pack. It's a quality field here in Curitiba. There indeed is the Conrad Porsche in the familiar blue and white colours, just coming into the picture at the back there. This circuit just outside the city of Curitiba, as you can see, a very green area of Brazil, very agricultural area. And the circuit and Nelson Piquet and Antonio Herman, who's a Brazilian driver and a race promoter, all working together to put on quality summer sports car racing in South America's largest country. So Johnny Cecotto sitting in the middle of that McLaren, of course. 3-seater McLaren, driver in the middle gives them a great advantage, being in the middle of the centre of gravity on these cars. Maurizio Sala and Thomas Bischer in third, ahead of the 2 Ferraris. Those 2 Ferraris, though, really pushing. They're the Euroteam cars. It's Herman in the 28 car from owner Luciano Delanocci in the 27 car, just behind him. They're closing on Bischer. Thomas Bischer showing his car with John Nielsen, of course. Further and further ahead goes Johnny Cecotto. Nothing to stop him at the moment. Pushing on in this Bugatti McLaren. Car you may well recognise from the Le Mans 24 Hours. There were 2 of the Bugatti BMWs there. One of the cars went to America, and this is it. Originally went over as a show car, but it's been press-ganged into action for these 2 Brazilian races. Well, there indeed is that Conrad car we were talking about earlier. So the Porsche brigade being led by Trinidade from the number 96 Labra car of Christophe Bouchou and Patrice Gouslard. And the other Conrad car behind them is also GT2. That's the car of Bob Wallach and Franz Conrad. The Labra and Wallach cars, of course, in GT2. This car we're looking at now, GT1. Labra looking for a win after a very barren 96. Not a single GT2 win during the whole of the BPR series of last year. Hoping they can do something better during the winter here in Brazil. Christophe Bouchou at the wheel at the moment, and who's so spectacular winning at Le Mans, but had a lot of accidents in 95, 96, blotting his copybook a little bit, trying to make up for it now today here at Curitiba. Bob Wallach having looked down the inside of Bouchou. Of course, these two drivers, old sparring partners, both top French drivers. But the extra power of that GT1 car at the moment taking Trinidad just a little bit ahead of them. Here's Antonio Herman, man we've seen a lot of racing this year in Europe, and right behind him still, with the lights on there, Luciano Dellanocci, the man who owns both these Ferrari F40s, these beautiful Evolution cars. Turbo cars, of course, against the atmospheric V12s of the BMW powered McLarens. Both engines with the restrictors pumping out in the region of 650 brake horsepower. Things a little bit different in Brasilia, where they're going to be much higher. It's a 3,500 foot high circuit. But here at Curitiba, near to sea level, everything's equal. And the Ferraris at the moment just playing themselves in. They know they're going to be struggling for fuel on this tighter circuit. It's where the McLarens tend to come into their own in these endurance races. They have longer legs on the fuel. Going past the Dodge Viper there incidentally. We see the Dodge Viper from European Luigi Racing. That's driven by Bob Keller and Roberto Arana. Car we saw racing at Le Mans 2 years ago in the rent-a-car team. There's day-glow colours. Oh, off goes 107 there. That is Andre Lauro Rosendi in the Conrad car, third of the Conrad cars. He's sharing that with Vido Rusla. Well, the battle's still on now, with Herman chasing hard after Thomas Bischer, looking down the inside, can't quite do it. Saw the Cycle Motorsport Porsche in the pit since then, the Halio Delisa and Alfonso Serra. They've had problems, and they have done very few laps in this race. They'll be stuck there for a long time. So all eyes at the moment on Bischer in third place, defending that third place from the Ferrari brigade. And from Luciano Dellanocci behind. Still out ahead, Johnny Cicotto leading from Maurizio Sala. Sala, of course, the mainstay of the GTC Motorsport Gulf team back in '95. Had a superb season with Ray Bellum in the car. That was then dropped in favour of James Weaver last year. And of course, Bellum and Weaver going on to win the championship. Despite the fact that Sala had 5 victories with Bellum in '95. Still that Ferrari climbing all over the back of Bischer's West McLaren. West McLaren on Goodyear tyres, of course. Callaway Corvette there of Callaway Schweiss team, Tony Seiler and Kurt Huber, not the Augusta team. Oh, through on the inside, oh, Herman tries to go through. It was a heavy move, it didn't quite come off because he lost some time braking to avoid a collision. Still BPR keeps that place. Third place secure from the Ferraris. Oh, problem there. Problem for Herman, he goes off the road. He missed a gear by the look of it. Went off the road and lost a little bit of time. All the Porsches further back, fighting their own battle. There we have a look at Herman going off again. He went very, very wide. You can see BPR getting the power down earlier, going off into the distance. So Herman losing some time there. But the Ferrari is almost certainly going to be the first cars to stop. They have that much heavier on fuel. And indeed, into the pits comes Luciano Dellanocci. He's going to be handing over to Luis Garcia Jr. Now, those in Britain probably recognize that name from British Formula 3, and more particularly last year in British Formula 3000 when he was racing for Edenbridge. So the young Brazilian driver gets in. Ferrari team, having seen him in action, deciding he's just the man they need. There he is, standing by the door, waiting for Dellanocci, the Rome house builder, to get out of the car. Well, he's out, and in gets Luis Garcia Jr. There's the Euro team under Luigi Dindo. Get the Ferrari fettled, running new wheels incidentally this weekend, trying to find a bit of cooling. We hear the pit lane sirens going, and indeed in comes Maurizio Sala. He's going to hand over to his team owner, Fabien Giroir. So Fabien Giroir in the Frank Muller Motorsport McLaren, having what it's going to be its last two races, because he'll be changing to Lotus in 1997. And the French One Giroir team still in second place, with Johnny Cecotto still leading. But Garcia takes the Ferrari back out into the race. We see Johnny Cecotto still leading. Man who was Italian touring car champion with Schnitzer BMW in 1989. And vice champion in the German series in 1992. Has always been a BMW man since he started touring car racing, and here he is indeed in the BMW Motorsport backed Bugatti BMW McLaren. Cecotto will be handing over later to Nelson Piquet, the man who organised these races, as Giroir rejoins in third place, and Garcia moves up into second. Well, now comes Antonio Herman. He's coming to hand over to Max Angolelli. Angolelli, a man who's a very, very useful Ferrari driver last year. Front runner in German Formula 3 in 95 and 96, but last year sprung on the scene with Ferrari. Brilliant drives, particularly at Monza, where we saw him do so well. Trinidade comes in with the top Porsche, the GT1 Conrad car. He's handing over to Jürgen Barth. And Johnny Cecotto also in pit lane, coming in to hand the Bugatti McLaren over to Nelson Piquet. The Bugatti team underneath team chief Gabriele Raffinelli. Of course, they won the BMW onslaught at the Spa 24 Hours last year. Bugatti. Out goes Cecotto, and in goes Nelson Piquet. What a man, Nelson Piquet. 3 times world champion in the early 80s, 81, 82 and 83. British Formula 3 champion before that in 1978, and in his Formula 1 career had 23 wins in 204 Grand Prix and 24 pole positions. His serious competition career effectively came to an end in 1992 when he had that huge crash in the Indianapolis 500, put him out of racing for some years. Decided to come back with those GT races in Interlagos in the 94-95. Although this is his first race since Le Mans last year when he drove this same car in the 24 hours. Nelson gets the McLaren wound up. Remember, there's a pit lane speed limit. Out he goes and back into the race. Fabien Jouard still in second place. There he is. He gets the board from the Frank Muller team. Just look at the power differential between GT1 BMW McLarens and GT2 Porsches. Something like 200 horsepower difference. And the McLaren absolutely ideally suited to this tight little circuit at Curitiba. Nelson Piquet leading on his home circuit for the Gazzi McLaren. And in second place, this man, Fabien Jouard, the French driver who was such a star in the German Touring Car Championship at the end of the 80s, also driving for BMW in those days. But still looking for a top finish in GT racing. Maybe this is going to be the afternoon. He's had a third, but he's not been first or second in the 2 years they've been campaigning this McLaren. Well, that Porsche battle still going on. Jürgen Barth here at the wheel in the GT1 Conrad car from Christophe Bouchou in the Labra GT2 car, and Bob Wallach also for Conrad. No, Franz Conrad in fact taking over that car from Wallach now in the GT2. There indeed was a shot of Franz there. So big fights going on all around the circuit. Well, it's going to end unhappily for Conrad and Wallach because they run out of fuel in the closing laps. Those closing laps, in fact, we're into now. Barth goes by in 5th place overall, top Porsche. Nothing like practicing what you preach. These are the cars he sells to customers, and he's showing just how competitive they still are. But we now pick up on that battle for second place in the closing laps of the race. Garcia at the wheel of the Ferrari. He's managed to get ahead of both those McLarens. Johnny Cecotto, Nelson Piquet car is up ahead of him with Piquet at the wheel, but it's Garcia in second place with the Ferrari now, and he's leading Jouard and John Nielsen. John Nielsen now at the wheel of the West McLaren, and look at John, Big John, the Danish driver, who will not take no for an answer, climbing all over the back of the two cars ahead. He is so determined. He wants to come through into second place. Maybe he's a bit too far behind now to take the leader, but look at that. Jouard goes through. What a beautiful move on the inside, but the Ferrari's got turbo power, and Garcia is not going to be put off easily. He just punches the power back in, and look at that. That turbo power really telling. Oh, and John Nielsen goes through, but he looks down the inside. He hasn't got the power to get past, though. And Garcia looking to go through again, past Jouard. Well, Jouard just held up for a moment there by that back marker, and that cost Jouard not second place, not third place, but now back into 4th place. So the battle now is between Garcia and Nielsen. It all turns round, and Jouard must have wondered what on earth happened then. Look at John Nielsen now, so aggressive, coming up behind the GT2 cars. Really pushing. Just a few laps to go. Incidentally, Labra has moved up into the lead of GT2. Christophe Bouchou and Patrice Geuslard taking advantage of the Wallach-Conrad fuel problem. And this greatly battle now for second place here in the Curitiba 2 hours. Nielsen climbing all over the back of the Ferrari. Callaway Corvette making space for the 3 cars there. Johnny Cecotto has gone on out of sight. Nelson Piquet rather in the car. He shows Cecotto. Oh, Nielsen, look at that blocking. Fabien Jouard, I'm sure Jouard will have words about that afterwards. That was a very definite "you're not coming past" move there from the aggressive John Nielsen. This looks like Ferrari's day. They're really on form now. And look at that, yes, the Brazilian crowd rising to their feet for their hero, Luis Garcia Jr. in second place at the moment, holding off those two McLarens. What a fine piece of driving by the young Brazilian. Second Garcia, third Nielsen, and in fourth place Fabien Girouard with the Jürgen Barth Porsche out of sight in fifth place behind them. Now dropping a little bit back from this battle between the GT1 supercars. Ferrari McLaren, and Garcia's the sandwich at the moment, but John Nielsen's looking down the inside and he comes through. Did Garcia have a problem then? He looked like he may be fishing for a gear. Yes, and indeed Girouard's gone through. Oh, it's puffs of smoke from the Ferrari. It looks like the same problems that hit Jean-Marc Gounon during our live coverage of Nogaro last year. The transmission fails, and sadly Garcia will be pulling off the circuit with the gearbox broken, out of the race. So Fabien Girouard moving into second place behind Nelson Piquet, and John Nielsen will finish in third place. Girouard making the most of that moment of fumbling to take the place. Here is Johnny Cecotto, Nelson Piquet's car. Nelson Piquet at the wheel, and Piquet heading for his first international win in nearly 3 years. Checkered flags out, and Piquet wins. And can you imagine just how crazy the 20,000 strong crowd have gone? The Gazzi BMW pit, there is Gabrielli, Raffanelli congratulating Cecotto, and Nielsen on his slowing down lap taking the plaudits of his home crowd. Well, Labre take their first GT2 win of last year. We have Christophe Bouchou and Guslard doing a great job. Jürgen Barth coming in fifth place. And on the podium, a delighted Nelson Piquet, having done exactly what he promised, to give his crowd a home victory.